What's going on, everyone? So this training camp, this preseason, but more so training camp, is probably the most important for the Spurs in a very long time. Right? Like, this is so important because of you're implementing a new head coach, right? That's going to set up new offensive schemes, new defensive schemes, new culture, foundation, everything. Yes, part of the Pop's coaching tree, stuff like that. We've seen some of those guys have great success. We've seen some of those guys flop, not do very well, right? Which is Mitch going to be? Wasn't really a huge fan of Mitch last season and some of his decision-making, his play calling, timeouts, rotations, things like that. But it was also a weird year. Right, he kind of took over for Pop. He's trying to figure stuff out. He's kind of got 1 foot in, 1 foot out for a good majority of the season. Then you go and trade for De'Aaron Fox, and then you go and bring in Victor Wembanyama goes down, and then it's like it was a mess last year. It's the first year where he's going to finally get to have the structure, have the stability. Right, De'Aaron Fox wasn't great in the Spurs jersey last year. He wasn't. He had the worst shooting percentage from three of his career with the Spurs. The pick and roll with him and Victor Wembanyama was terrible. They had a worse win rate with De'Aaron Fox than without, and they didn't trade anything to get him. Now, again, in his defense, right, kind of came thrusted in. Wemby goes down shortly after. They're starting him and Chris Paul together, so it was like awkward because they made promises to Chris Paul. Also, it's really hard. It's easy to integrate a role player. Right? Like, usually that's why you see, like, role players will get traded for, and they immediately have an impact. It's because, like, they're used to not having the ball in their hands. They're used to kind of just being a 3-and-D guy, whatever, right? It's like, hey, you know what you've done everywhere you've been? Yeah, just do that here, right? But adding in an all-star or a star or a guy that's one of the top guys on a team, they're used to a certain usage rate. They're used to a certain shot, number of shot attempts. They're used to a lot of various things. Then you add in a point guard that is all of those things, who has the ball in his hands, that needs to know, like, where, what are the plays? What are the offense that is in charge of controlling the game and knowing all your players and where does this guy like it? Where's his shooting pocket compared to his shooting pocket? Establishing that chemistry. I mean, there's a lot, right? Now you have this training camp to really build that and establish that. What kind of offenses are you going to run? What your starter's going to look like? What's your rotation going to look like? Right? Like, how do you want to try and experiment with different things? Are you going to kind of base it based on certain matchups? Because you can be very chameleon-like. You can go two bigs. You can go like kind of a 5-out offense. You can go, kind of like a, 4-in-1-out. 1-in-4-out type offense, right? Like you can do all these various things and run these different sets because of the way that your roster is. You also need to identify, like, who are your guys? Who are the odd men out? I've talked about how Spurs are going to have to start making some tough decisions pretty soon. Right? This team's going to get very expensive and very expensive fast. You're going to have to start, really evaluating not just like what your team is, how you want your team structures, all that thing, but like who's the guy you're okay losing? Because you can't have 6 guys on max contracts. And you have De'Aaron Fox, you're going to have Victor Wembanyama. Then what? You're going to have Stephon Castle, Dylan Harper, right? Devin Vassell's he's making like $27 million a year. Again, in the next like 3 years, this team's going to have 3 or 4 max guys. That's not counting Carter Bryant, Jeremy Sohan, right? So there's a lot that needs to be figured out beyond just like who you are as a team, what's your identity. Brian Wright talked about how he really wants to see this team have a defensive identity, but he's not the coach, right? Like, is Mitch on board with that? Is he able to have this team be the defensive identity? There's a lot of questions about the shooting or lack thereof. How is he able to offset that? How is he able to mask that? Right? Like, what is this team going to look like, going into the season, the first 20 games, first 40 games, first 60 games, and then the first 80, and then 80 games. Are we a playoff team? Are we a contending team? Are you able to make adjustments and changes as the season progresses based on how things are looking and adjusting? Or are you just kind of stubborn and live to your philosophy, right? There's so many things. Does De'Aaron Fox even work? Right? De'Aaron Fox has got a lot to prove. I'm going to make videos and breaking down and going over various players and all that stuff. Like, there's a lot that I want to kind of go over and talk about, especially now that we're inching closer and closer to training camp and kind of trying to, round out this roster, and there's going to be guys that are going to, be invited to training camp that are going to have to prove it on two-way or fill that 15th spot or whatever. There's a lot of things that are going to take place during training camp. And, as we progress, I want to get into a lot of stuff, but I just think this training camp in particular is so important for this Spurs team. Like, I cannot stress that enough. This is a Spurs team that, no one really expects them to win an NBA championship. But and there's going to be different iterations of this team. There's going to be, players that come in and out and all that stuff. But this is the year where for the next, handful of years, you're establishing and creating that identity. Right? This is the year where, again, you're establishing your coach that you're planning on being your head coach for the next handful of years. De'Aaron Fox, you just gave a max contract to for the next 4 years. So he's sticking around, right? Victor Wembanyama is your guy that you're a lot of your core and foundation that you are going to really set and establish this year is all going to carry into the next few years. Once you have that, then it's just kind of like getting the new guys acclimated. Then it's just kind of like, okay, you guys know the drill. You guys, come on, let's figure out the drill here, right? And yeah, maybe you're in and you're out. You're making little minor tweaks and adjustments and changes and stuff like that. But for the most part, you are the team that you are. So this season in particular is so valuable, so important, so significant for this team. We need to make sure that we're holding up our end and we're doing what we're supposed to be doing in that front. The Spurs are, this is everything. This is the make or break year in a lot of ways. Because if you don't establish and set up what you need to establish right now this season, then that's another year you're trying to figure it out. And then next year, same thing. And then, the goal is, yes, no one's expecting to win a championship this year, but to make the playoffs, and the expectation is to win a championship in the next few years. Right? So, if you start getting further and further and further behind that 8 ball, all of a sudden you look up and it's like, okay, we have some problems here. Houston, we may have a problem, right? It's just, I want to see the Spurs have the success. And a lot of it is going to be based on, we're going to look back 2-3 years from now and go, man, that first year, Mitch Johnson, man, he didn't establish what we need him to establish. Now he's fired and they're trading De'Aaron Fox and they're tearing this down because it just didn't work. And this offseason is in many ways going to be the offseason that really sets the tone and establishes it. This is going to be the offseason that we're very reliant on everything kind of playing itself out and what you're implementing and what's your identity, what's your offense, what's your defense, what's your so on and so forth. How are you going to approach this? But I'm excited, looking forward to it. And as always, this is a discussion, so I pass the question to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. I enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe channel, hit that subscribe button. Turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.